In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Thursday, October 13th, and welcome into the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. This is the third of 3 shows a week for us. So how you guys doing? Are you holding up okay?
I'm exhausted.
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm doing a lot better than the Denver Broncos.
Oh, boy. So Sal is not only mocking Steve, but he's doing it musically tonight. That's a good start.
It helps ease the pain a little bit.
That's nice.
At least I'm entertained. But, you know, he likes to sing and jest about the Denver Broncos when all he's talking about is how good Virgil Green's doing. So, you know, burning his own bridge here.
This is great for me because I remember a time, less than 2 weeks ago, that everyone was saying the Patriots, after losing to the Bills, would have no chance of catching the Broncos for the first seed in the AFC. So this is lovely. I love it.
Well, guess who you're in competition with for the first seed in the AFC, buddy? The Raiders.
That is very true, and we
don't come into the black hole. We'll take Tommy up and eat him right up.
Oh, I would just love a snow game again. That would just be fun.
It's going to be in Oakland this year, you son of a.
All right, listen. Before we get too far along, I should point out that I am Kevin Cotillo, and you can find me on Twitter or on the Fantasy Life app as @WallyCentral. One of the depressed one that you heard is Steve Marcus. You can find him on both of those fine programs as well as @SidSkeet. And the musical host tonight is Sal Lito. You can find him on Twitter as @LitoSal and on the Fantasy Life app as @Sal33. You, of course, can also follow the show on Twitter as @FalafelHouse, and you can stop by the Falafel House chat in the Fantasy Life app if you have any questions or would like to just kind of hang out with us. Anything else? Did I miss anything else? Is that it? I think that's good.
The website.
The website. That's right. I always forget about the website because basically everyone else provides good quality content for that, and I don't. You can check us out on falafelhouse.com.
Another reason to visit.
There it is. Another reason to visit. There are articles coming up daily. We have daily fantasy articles about DFS. Obviously, we have rankings. We have what else?
We have good streamer articles, trading articles, waiver wire ads. We got Craig, our own slime sucking hogs, checks in every Monday with his grumpy old man take and overreaction Monday. Some really good stuff.
I like that he took over the grumpy old man takes from you. Because,
well, he's like 17 years older than me.
Right. I mean, I guess, but you are still the resident grumpy old man, so.
Shut up.
All right. As usual on the Thursday episode of the Falafel House, we are going to get right into the game previews tonight because we'll cover any and all news as we go through the games. We are obviously not going to talk about the Thursday game because Steve might cry. I've heard it before. It's not fun to listen to, so we're going to try and avoid that. But we'll get through the games, and then we might – I don't know if you guys even have bold predictions this week, but I'm going to give you a chance to make one up on the fly, so keep that in mind.
All right, noted. I've got one. I'm actually ready for that one this week.
That's the only thing you prepared this week?
Yeah, close.
All right. Well, let's start off the 3-2 Los Angeles Rams. Will travel to the Motor City in Detroit to take on the 2-3 Lions. This game will be at 1:00. Dwayne Washington still not practicing, but I guess he was doing some drills on the side and he looked pretty good. At least that's the comments that people have made. But the Lions did sign Justin Forsett this week, so they bring in the wily veteran who did not look very good in his time in Baltimore earlier in the year and then was released by them as they decided to get younger. I don't know what to expect out of Forsett really, but I guess we'll see if the guy has any legs left, and because he's going to get some opportunity to run here. Obviously, they have Theo Riddick as the passing down back, but we're going to see Forsett definitely get some work on first and second down or short yardage. I think he'll kind of be the guy while Dwayne Washington comes back to health, because it looks like Sal's boy Zach Zenner didn't really do much. Let's see. The Rams come into the game with a winning record despite having a minus 24 point differential. The Lions are actually 11th overall in points scored. The Rams are at 30th. Todd Gurley comes in with a very concerning 2.7 yards per carry on 105 rushes. So it's not even a small sample size anymore. I get it that their offensive line isn't very good, but that's concerning to me. I don't know if you guys have any particular thoughts on that.
On Gurley?
Yeah.
I think Gurley's going to go off this week, personally. The Lions are giving up.
Of course you do.
I don't own him. I think I own him, in one league, but it's not a league that's really a top priority league for me. So I don't have any real stake in the game. But no, Lions given up about 100 yards a game rushing, and they've given up 30 receptions to running backs. So I think that this is going to be a Gurley game. He's going to, be on both ends of the ball, catching and rushing, and he's coming around. I have faith in the guy's a massive talent. So I think Louis Riddick said the other day that he believes Todd Gurley isn't a better talented running back than Ezekiel Elliott. He just doesn't play on as good a team.
I definitely can agree with that. I mean, he just doesn't have that line to block for him, just doesn't have the protection around him, doesn't have the playmakers around him on the outside, all that kind of stuff. So he's just in a completely better situation than Todd Gurley is right now. But for this game, for me, I wanted to talk about Golden Tate. He obviously has been a huge letdown for anyone that has drafted him so far this year. But looking at our rankings, you guys are a little bit higher on him than I am. You guys have got him ranked at we've got him 30th overall. Kev, you got him at 25. I've got him at 41, and Sal has him at 29. So I want to see a few running backs. You guys are saying that he's a flex player, so I want to see some running backs that you guys might want to start over him or potentially have Golden Tate in there. So, Kev, we'll start with you. You're going to start Golden Tate or Darren Sproles this week?
Oh, that's tough, man. You're starting off with a tough one.
I'm not messing around.
Yeah, I guess not. Let me see. I'm going to go with... I think I'm going to go with Tate still.
Sal?
Yeah, I'll go with Tate. Rams give up a lot of receptions to wide receivers, somewhere in the upper 70s. And while Sproles has a good matchup against Washington this week, they give up rushing yards. They don't really give up a lot of receiving yards to running backs.
All right. Well, then, Sal, Golden Tate or Spencer Ware, your boy?
You know what? So I had Spencer Ware probably a little bit lower than I actually feel like he'll do. And Spencer, he might come into my bold prediction later. So I'm going to say that I'll go with Spencer Ware.
You've already used Spencer Ware as a bold prediction this year, so I think I'm going to veto.
But
that.
It might incorporate Jamal Charles as well.
And I'm definitely taking Tate over Ware this week.
All right, Kev, Golden Tate or James White?
That's a close one as well. I might actually go with James White.
That's not surprising. Sal?
Yeah, Golden Tate was getting worked. I'm sorry, James White was getting worked a little bit more last week, and I think with Brady coming back, he becomes a much more viable player. So I could see in a flex situation going with White.
All right, and one last one. You're going to do Golden Tate or Matt Jones?
For me? Oh, this is tough. Sure, why not? Go with this guy over here. Let's see. Who was Washington playing against the Eagles? Oh, I'll go with Golden Tate.
Kev?
Yeah, Golden Tate. Yep.
All right. Well, you guys like him much more than me. I've actually got Cameron Meredith ranked ahead of him. In 3 games, Cameron Meredith has 15 catches on 20 targets. In 5 games, Golden Tate has 17 catches on 30 targets. Cam Meredith's getting much more volume than he is, so I'm not a big fan of Golden Tate. And that's all I've got for this game.
What are they? Three spots different for me? Is 129 and 32?
4 spots. 33.
Yeah, listen, I love Cameron Meredith, so I just think Tate might, Ebron's out again, and I think that he just becomes a little bit bigger. I know your boy over there, Bolden's catching touchdowns, but Tate's got to get it going. Like we said last week on the review show, they handed the ball two and three times. They're trying to get him touches.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and work him in more. I really do think that they're as Sal said, trying to kick up his usage, whether it be running the ball a couple of times or getting open. I mean, you're just going to see more out of him. And this is a game where they will have the game script, I think, to do this, because I think they're actually going to get ahead pretty quickly. That's just my own personal thought here. Who do you guys have winning this game?
The Lions.
I'm going to take Detroit.
Yeah, me too. So that's 3 for the Lions. So the Rams will fall to even on the season there if that is the case. Let's move along here. Carolina Panthers are 1-4, surprisingly. It's amazing to me that they're 1-4. They are heading to New Orleans, who are 1-3. So it's the bottom of the division here. But you know what that means is that they're not even really playing for first base because Atlanta's been so good. So I don't even know what they're doing. They need this win big, either one of them. So I don't know who wants to win the division or at least try to win the division. But look, despite being 9th, which is Carolina, and 16th, which is New Orleans, in scoring offense, they both have a negative point differential, which is impressive. Carolina's secondary can't seem to cover anyone, and New Orleans' defense in general can't stop anyone at all. But when you talk about this game being in New Orleans, you got to look at Drew Brees at home. In his career, Drew Brees completes 2% more of his passes, throws for almost 20 more yards per game, and has thrown 76 more touchdowns versus 8 less interceptions at home. Those are very significant numbers. It's amazing what he does at home versus what he does on the road. So, and with Carolina's secondary being as beaten up and as ineffective as they have been with rookies all over the place, it's staggering to think of what Drew Brees might actually do in this game. Cam Newton, on the other hand, on pace for 49 sacks in 15 games, which would be more than any other year of his career. Last time he had over 40 sacks, he had the highest interception percentage of his career besides his rookie year. So something to note there. He's getting hit. He's getting hit a lot. It's obviously affecting his health, but it's also affecting his ability to throw the ball downfield and to not be intercepted. So a couple of things that I think are interesting about this game. Steve, what are you looking at in this one?
I think for me, the big thing is going to be Jonathan Stewart coming back. We've all got him ranked as a running back 1 in Falafel. Kev, you are particularly high on him for his first week back. The Saints' run defense, like you said, it sucks. They've given up 8 rushing touchdowns this year, 2 rushes of 40 yards or more. So with him being back, he is going to be a must start this week because of his matchup. And then I tend to agree with you with the of what Brees is going to be potentially able to do, and I like what that means for Brandon Cooks and Willie Snead. You have the Panthers that have allowed 9 passing touchdowns this year, tied for 8th most in the league. So I think that it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, and I'm looking for points out of most of your typical starters here.
I do not have Stewart ranked as an RB1. I believe I have him ranked as number 18.
No. We have him ranked as an RB1 for Falafel. Consensus rank is an RB1. I've got him at 16. You've got him at 18.
Yeah, and it's mostly driven by me. I have him at 7.
Well, Kevin has him at number 1, I guess.
7. 7.
So yeah, listen, it's a 32nd ranked defense against running backs in fantasy. So I understand the ranking, but for me, he's coming back. It's his first week back, and like we discussed before we got on the show, Devonta Freeman had a big game, 153-yard rushing game. But in the other 3 games this year, it's been spread out amongst 2 to 3 running backs. It hasn't been one specific, consistent running back. And we all know that I'm not a fan of Jonathan Stewart. He doesn't do a ton for me. If Cameron Artis-Payne is not active, obviously it boosts them up a little bit. When I made my rankings, I was under the impression that they would be, use their intelligence and keep a young guy like Cameron Artis-Payne active, in case he does get nicked up. I know Fozzie Whitaker was able to come in and spell him when he got injured last time. But to me, I thought Payne earned himself a little bit of playing time. The Saints, when you look at their pass defense, they're actually defending the pass better this year when it comes to fantasy. But when you look deeper, they've played 4 games and they've given up 300-plus rushing yards in 3 of those 4 games. So it's kind of a tricky stat when you see that they're somewhere in the middle of the pack. And hey, I can agree with you before, Kevin. If Matt Ryan threw for 503 yards and 4 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against this defense, I mean, get Breeze in your lineup, get him in your DFS. He's got the possibilities for a history-making day.
Yeah, on that track in the dome where he's comfortable, it's just I'm looking at our rankings now and I'm far too low on him at 6. So I would definitely be changing that up. So, all right, let's move along here. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 1-3 will take on the Chicago Bears in Chicago. The Bears are 1-4. Both teams have looked pretty awful throughout the beginning of this season. For the Bears, everyone seems to be dinged up, but everyone seems to be playing. Biggest surprise, obviously, last week, I shouldn't say surprise for a lot of the fantasy world. Our own Sal knew about Cam Meredith coming along, but that was a big surprise coming out of there with some big, heavy numbers filling in for the Kevin White role, basically. It looks like Eddie Royal is going to play. It looks like Alshon Jeffrey's on the injury report, as he always is, but will play. So. And it looks like Cutler's still out, so you got another game of Hoyer. Before we get into the Hoyer-Alshon rant of the night by Steve, just a couple of quick notes. As I mentioned, Cameron Meredith, he got 12 targets last week, 9 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. But these teams are so bad. They've only scored 169 points between the two of them, which is 6 less than the Falcons have scored this year. So
Ouch.
Combined, they have not outscored the Falcons, and they have a negative 68-point differential. So that just goes to show you how bad these two teams have been offensively. And Yeldon, for me, is an interesting guy to keep an eye on in this game because he finally looked a little bit decent last week, or the last week before the bye. He had 100 total yards, but he hasn't scored since week 1. Ivory's, should be a little healthier coming out of the bye, so you got him to contend with. He's just a guy that I'm going to keep an eye on. Another guy, some interesting things to note on Allen Robinson is 41 targets, but only 21 receptions this year, which is a 51% catch rate. His catch percentage has gone down each year he's been in the league. I know it's only his 3rd year, but this would be an alarming trend for me if it stays this way. You got to hope for him to improve. And I know you don't have too many other notes on this game, Steve, but let's hear it. Let's hear your Hoyer-Alshon rant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, before we started this podcast, I didn't even want to talk about this game because every time I talk or think about Alshon Jeffrey and what he has done this season, it makes me mad. It frustrates me, and he's not getting any type of solid production. Brian Hoyer comes out today and says, "Oh, I'm not going to force feed the ball to him." So you're not force feeding the ball when he's running wide open down the sideline. You're just throwing the ball. You just have to throw the ball to him. You're not forcing it when he's waving his arms, showing you that how wide open he is. So I don't really want to talk about this game. I hope that Brian Hoyer is somehow able to look in Alshon Jeffrey's direction sometime in the near future while they're playing and maybe throw the ball his way. Understand that he's a really good wide receiver. He can go up and catch the ball. So I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk about this one.
Well, listen, Hoyer has looked really solid. I was having this conversation on the Fantasy Life app earlier when somebody came in and says, I believe Cutler gets the job back and Alshon goes off. And what would make you think that? So the person's response was, Hoyer is good for fantasy, but not good for the NFL. So Jay Cutler's good in the NFL? Hoyer has completed 70+% of his passes. He's averaging exactly 2 touchdowns a game. He's had 2, 2, and 2, and 300+ passing yards with 0 turnovers. I mean, what more do you need to do to show that you're good in the NFL? I know his track record in his history, but right now, Brian Hoyer looks better. I hope that he keeps the job. I do have Cameron Meredith. I invested in him in a lot of places, so they look like they got a nice little connection together. So I'll stay on that bandwagon for as long as I can. On the Bears side, the Bears are kind of laughed at and joked about, but they're actually pretty good on defense this year. They're not bad in any one specific place. They're really middle of the pack to maybe upper part of the league in defending most fantasy positions. So while I do think that this game will have some points scored in it because Jacksonville is just that type of team, they just keep chucking all game, late into the game. You could probably comfortably start the Bears defense even in this game at home. I think they're scoring over 9 points a game for fantasy this year. And Kev, to your point, Allen Robinson has survived on touchdowns this year. That has salvaged some bad fantasy days that he would have had. He had a few, but the touchdowns have definitely saved them.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's something to watch with him going forward, whether or not he's going to improve. I know, when you think about his season last year and how good he was and how good the both receivers in Jacksonville were, and Bortles for that matter, it was all junk time, and they were getting touchdowns and they were throwing all over the place because they were constantly trying to catch up. They're still behind this year, and yet they're not getting the junk time that they were getting before. So it's a little concerning as far as the trend. The team's not good and they're not really producing. So a guy that a lot of people, drafted early, you just want to see them progress. So, all right, let's keep moving here. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-1, and they are taking on the Miami Dolphins at 1-4. This game is in Miami. And I asked you guys before we got on the air who you thought the worst team in the league was. And Miami is definitely one to consider. They look absolutely terrible. They are getting Arian Foster back this week, it looks like anyway. It looks like he's going to play. He's been limited in practice so far this week, but it looks like he's on track to go get back. I don't know what you can expect out of him. Miami is 27th in the league in offensive plays run. So they have run far fewer plays than a lot of other teams, and they're being outrushed by over 89 attempts and over 390 yards. So other teams are just running them into the ground because they can, because their run defense is terrible, and because they just won't possess the ball with big leads. So this team has been terrible. Meanwhile, the Steelers come in 4th in points in the league and 5th in yards, and Miami is giving up the 10th most points in the league. So looks like another long day for Miami coming up. I see lots of points for the Steelers. I see lots of points for everyone involved in the Steelers offense. I think you can comfortably start all of your Steelers, and that includes all of the receivers. I think you can get every single one of them in and be comfortable with it, because Ben's going to throw for another 4 touchdowns, in my opinion. I think he's gonna light them up. I don't know, Sal, do you see anything different from Miami that I'm not seeing, or?
Yeah, I mean, the only guy I would say that you're going to start in Miami, and it's because the Steelers have given up the most receptions to wide receivers this year. They've given up 79, which is just shy of 16 a game to wide receivers. So I'd be okay starting Jarvis Landry in a PPR league, because I'm sure he's going to get a ton of targets and receptions. His yardage total might not be super high, but those receptions will help carry you. Just keep an eye on Sammy Coates. He still didn't practice yet this week, and he turned up with a cast on his hand, supposedly got stitched in the webbing of his hand, and that could be an issue. Eli Rogers is healthy. He's a guy I dropped last week in Falafel and was able to grab him back up before Steve got his grubby hands on him.
Oh, so sneaky.
He's a guy who I would consider as a flex option this week, getting back into the slot. On the Dolphins side, Dolphins are 28th in defending wide receivers. They've given up big games to number 1 wide receivers this season, and 8 for 144 to Terrell Pryor, and 10 for 173 and a touchdown to A.J. Green. So this tells me Antonio Brown probably goes for over 200 yards in this game, and I mean that. I think he'll go for over 200 yards in this game. And, to your point, Kevin, they gave up 3 passing touchdowns to Mariota last week, so I would be shocked if I didn't see 5 out of Ben this week.
Yeah,
and
I have a
Gus
lot
and Gio.
I have a lot of Antonio Browns in my DFS.
Gus and Gio can get up off the floor now.
Yeah.
I don't have much to add to this game. I actually think that Le'Veon Bell is going to be the one that has the huge game this week. I'm going to save that for my bold prediction, though. But you have the Dolphins allowing a league-high 150 rush yards per game. So I think that Le'Veon Bell is going to have his breakout game of the season. And on the other side of the ball, you mentioned Arian Foster coming back. If you can avoid it, I would not start this guy. You have the Steelers. They're only allowing 77 rushing yards per game. So they've been very good, mostly probably because they are going to be up by quite a bit in this game, and teams have had to abandon the run against them. But be that as it may, that is a very likely scenario in this game. So I would not be starting any Dolphins running back for this one.
Hey, Steve. What if your other running backs were Justin Forsett, Jacquizz Rodgers, and Jeremy Langford? Asking for a friend here.
Hypothetically, I guess I would. I mean, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there. You got to do what you got to do. Start Forsett.
Drop the hyper. That's just pathetically to have that. Those are your running backs. What league is that?
Falafel.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Jerk.
Man, I thought my running backs were bad.
Your whole team's
Speaking of running backs,
bad.
none of you guys want to tell me that Gordon got hurt? You sons of bitches. You didn't. You ruined everything else.
That's the thing that we're allowed to talk about.
You ruin everything else for me. You don't tell me Gordon left on a foot injury. Dirtbags.
He'll be all right.
Wow. All right. Breaking news there. He'll be all right. He'll be all right. Let's keep moving. Baltimore Ravens are 3-2, and the New York Giants are 2-3. They are going to meet in New York at 1:00. According to Pro Football Reference, Giants have had the most difficult schedule in the league so far this year, while the Ravens are tied for the third easiest. So I think you can see what Sal has been talking about for a couple of days now is that the Giants should be able to wipe the floor with the Ravens and show the world who the Ravens actually are. We're starting to see that as well, as they started a 3-0 and now are 3-2. Eli Manning actually has his highest completion percentage of his career so far this year. He just needs to get in the end zone, man. He for those of you who heard the Sunday night show that we recorded, obviously that was Sal's plead, was for Eli to throw a touchdown, and he did. So Sal, you should thank him. But he needs to do it more often. He needs to get in the end zone. He's actually not having a bad season otherwise. And on the Baltimore side of the ball, the one thing that I think is interesting is Terrence West averaging 5 yards per carry. But I guess the question for you, Steve, is will we start to see more Kenneth Dixon?
I do think we will start to see a bit more of Kenneth Dixon this week. I just think that people need to remember that Terrence West is a guy this is not his first team. He's been in the league for a few years. There are reasons that he was not a just instant starter when he came to Baltimore or when he was in Cleveland. And so Kenneth Dixon's got a much cleaner path to taking over that job, taking over that role. So I still have hope. It might be a little bit slower coming along based on how West is playing if he can keep this up for a few more weeks. But ultimately, I still believe that Kenneth Dixon will be taking over it as getting the lead work in that backfield.
I'm just high on the Giants all around this week. I'm going to say that I think that the Giants defense finishes as a top 5 fantasy defense this week. And I'm not going to read a single stat to substantiate that. I'm just going to tell you that it's going to happen. They do everything well. The Giants don't give up a lot of points. They don't get blown out. They do everything well. And I think that it's a perfect storm coming together for them. And I've been outspoken also about my point that the Ravens are a paper team right now. They started out 3-0, lost 2 in a row. In the last 3 weeks, they've given up 7 passing touchdowns. So I think that and they've all gone to wide receivers. So I think that bodes well for Eli and all 3 wide receivers in that offense this week. And, I think going forward, the Ravens will not even be a 500 football team this year by the time the season's done.
And we were talking about at the beginning of the show about misleading facts or misleading statistics. And one of those, if you look at Eli Manning's matchup this week, you see the Ravens are ranked 7th against quarterbacks. But if you look at the schedule and who they played Buffalo, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Oakland, and Washington. So not exactly the scariest quarterbacks. You had Derek Carr in there, obviously is very good, and Blake Bortles can throw the ball. But, I mean, for Buffalo and Cleveland and Washington, those aren't quarterbacks that are necessarily lighting up the scoreboard. So those numbers might look like they were really good, but Eli Manning is a better or just as good quarterback as Derek Carr. I mean, so those types of things can get you in trouble if you're looking at those numbers alone, not digging a little deeper.
Quickly, somebody on Fantasy Life app said Eli Manning is droppable today. I responded, that is dependent on league size. So, in your opinion, what size league is Eli Manning droppable in, and where should you keep him?
I mean, I think I'm going to say he's probably droppable in a 14-team or higher. I think 12-team, he's still on your roster.
I'd drop him in a 10-team league.
Wow.
Yeah, see, I looked at it the opposite way, Kevin. I looked at it as you'd have more options in an 8, 10, or 12-team league, but in a 14 or a 16, where if you don't have two quarterbacks, right, and one gets hurt, you're really scraping the barrel on a wire. Like, I only have Eli Manning and Falafel.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
In week 8, I'm going to be looking for some bottom of the barrel stuff to start, because 16 teams times 2 is equal to the amount of teams that are in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking completely the opposite way. I was thinking of him as not a top 14 team, not a top 14 quarterback, I guess, is what I was thinking. He's right around that 14 range.
I would like to announce that Virgil Green made a catch tonight, and we should just move on.
Hey, congratulations to Virgil Green. That helps us very marginally. All right, so the San Francisco 49ers are at 1-4, and they are traveling to Orchard Park, Buffalo, to play the Bills, who are 3-2. The big news in this one is obviously Colin Kaepernick has been announced the starter for the 49ers. He's taking over for the atrocious Blaine Gabbert. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier this week. I'm hopeful that Kaepernick can return to form. I think that this offense is built for him. I think a lot of people who are a lot smarter than me and know the game a lot better than I do have said that that this is a perfect match for an offense and a player if you're talking about the old Colin Kaepernick. So hopefully he can get back to that, but he hasn't been good for a very long time. And obviously he's had injuries and he's supposedly had conditioning issues. So we'll see what happens with that. Some other items of note for me in this game. LaShawn McCoy is so freaking good at football. And he's just, this offense is running through him right now. He has a 5.3 yards per carry average. He's got 3 touchdowns. He's also got 19 receptions on 21 targets. If it wasn't for Gillislee sniping 3 of his touchdowns so far, he'd be just less than a point behind David Johnson for the second highest scoring running back, at least in Falafel scoring, which is half-point PPR league. So, just absolutely killing it, and I think that this is a game where he's going to be even better. San Francisco's terrible against the run, so I think you can expect a lot from McCoy early and often in this game. Carlos Hyde has been pretty good, if you want to give something to the 49ers. He's 6th in points in Falafel, so there's that. Am I missing anything, Steve?
No, there's just about that. I think for this game, I had the same things written down. You really just want these 2 guys. You want Shady McCoy and Carlos Hyde, just to add to San Francisco's terrible run defense. They're second worst in rush yards allowed per game at 146, and they've allowed a league high 5 rushes of 20 yards or more. So there are some holes to be found there. And for Carlos Hyde, the 49ers, when they get in close, at least when they had Blaine Gabbert, they just did not throw the ball at all. So it was Carlos Hyde getting a lot of volume and getting a lot of rushes inside the red zone, and that's led to some good some touchdowns. And so he's been very fantasy relevant this year, something that I did not anticipate being the case. I still think he'll get hurt at some point.
Yeah, so, to further the point, we'll drive it home. The 49ers are 28th in defending fantasy running backs, giving up in PPR, giving up a 25-plus a game to running backs. So, yeah, this is just going to be a great spot for Shady. And, the only thing I'll add is we were really hard on Rex Ryan a couple of weeks ago, and he's righted the ship. They're 3-2. They went out west to L.A. last week, to a Rams team that was better than expected so far, and they handled them. So, I guess we should always be playing both sides, and when we have something bad to say, we have to correct it when they do something well. So, Rexy, sexy Rexy, you live to see another week.
I don't know if he had to go that far.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we used to call him over here in New York when he was in New York. It was a New York thing.
I get it.
Listen,
I can relate to that.
They could easily win the next, what is it? I think 3 games they have coming up and go into back into New England at 6-2, which it would be if that is the case. Obviously, that's going to be a pretty big important battle for the division, which would be impressive. I don't personally.
Patriots are gonna win that game 45-0.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I don't think the Bills will win the next 3 games either. But
I'm taking the Bills.
Wow. All right. Lock that down. We'll decide on the money later. For now, talking about the 2 worst or the possible worst teams in the league, we have 2 candidates in the next game. Cleveland Browns are 0-5. That was Steve's pick for the worst team in the league. They are playing the Tennessee Titans, who are 2-3 at Tennessee. Titans, or I should say, the Kessler is expected to start for the Browns this week. Apparently, his shoulder has come back into form, so hopefully he'll be okay there. I don't really know how Tennessee has won 2 games. They're not very good. DeMarco Murray is good.
They played the Dolphins.
They did play the Dolphins. That's good. Yeah.
I mean, they have a top run game and a really solid defense.
I would say the defense has been a bright spot. I mean, I think they do play defense pretty well, but when your offense is as bad as it is, I mean, like I said, it's DeMarco Murray, right? And Delaney Walker, I guess, has 16 receptions and he's 7th in tight end scoring for fantasy. So, I mean, I guess he's been pretty good. And Mariota had the big game last week, but I don't know. Neither of these teams really impressed me. I think on the Cleveland side, you're talking about Terrell Pryor, and Crowell's had a nice little season, but I don't know that you can count on him for more than an low-end RB2 or a flex. I don't know. What do you guys think? What am I missing here?
I don't think you're missing much. I mean, you hit on Delaney Walker. The Browns are not even close. They're the worst team defending tight ends. They've given up 43 receptions and 501 yards and 5 touchdowns to tight ends. No other team in the league has given up over 400 yards to tight ends, and they're in the 500. So, to me, this is a big Delaney Walker game. And you're starting DeMarco Murray every week. That's a no doubt about it thing. And the Browns, Terrell Pryor I'm worried about the guy. We said this already. It's not a talent level issue. It's a surrounding talent issue. So, I'm not plugging him into my lineup every week. I'm definitely looking and scheduling better defenses or not as good defenses than the Titans.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that other than I saw on NFL.com today an article by Alex Gelhar suggesting that it would be a good idea to bench Andrew Luck this week and start Marcus Mariota instead. And if you've got the cojones to do that, then good for you, and you deserve whatever ends up happening, because I cannot justify ever making that move in one of my lineups. But so I know there are weeks where it would work, where he would score more, but I'm not willing to take that chance. So I just thought that was a little crazy.
Just for comparison's sake, we
call Alex out.
Yeah,
He's listening.
We have Andrew Luck at 8, and we have where is he? Mariota
23.
At 23. So clearly, none of us are willing to do that.
I'll have to check with Mr. Gelhart tomorrow. I had a Twitter interaction with him yesterday, not the first time, and I'm gonna have to let him know how you feel, Steve.
Do it.
I'm gonna do it right now. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Move on, Kev. Leave without him.
All right, moving along, we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to my hometown, New England, to take on the Patriots. The Bengals are 2-3, and have looked not very good. The New England Patriots are 4-1, and they now have Brady back. Jeremy Hill was a full participant in practice on Thursday, so it looks like he's battled through most of his injuries that he had sustained in the last game, because it sounded like he was injured kind of all over. Brady was incredibly efficient in his first game back, while Andy Dalton needed junk time against the Cowboys to basically be relevant, in his game last week. So the Bengals, as a team, are abysmal in the running game right now. 3.4 yards per carry average for the team. So that's both Gio and Hill combined with any other guy they hand the ball off to. They just can't get it done. I don't know if it's an offensive line thing. I don't know if it's just overall poor running. But neither of these guys have really looked great. Gio's been decent in the passing game. I think in this particular game you're probably going to see more of him. Is my own personal thought, just because I think the Bengals are going to be throwing because I think they're going to be down. Brandon LaFell, speaking of throwing for the Bengals, is catching over 65% of his passes. He has 21 catches, 276 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty impressive for a guy that I didn't really expect a whole lot of out of this year, but it seems like he's sort of settling into that almost a similar role he had in New England. So hopefully he can keep that up. He's a guy that I would definitely, if he's probably available in a decent amount of the smaller leagues. So guy you can keep an eye on as a streamer for a flex play kind of thing. Any thoughts from you, Sal, on this game?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Gio thing. We all know I've talked uphill. I've been on his side all along, but I cannot defend him currently. You're still on my rosters, Mr. Hill, but you are not getting into my lineup. And the Pats have given up 31 receptions to running backs, and they've given up 6 to David Johnson, 5 to Lamar Miller, and 6 to LaShawn McCoy. So this definitely has the earmark of a Giovanni Bernard game, so I would definitely get him in. The Bengals, for as great as they've been in the past on defense, are 24th in defending QBs. So I'm expecting Mr. Brady to come back and once again have a very, very nice day here. Maybe another 4 touchdowns. Maybe gets Gronk in there and lets Bennett sit on the sideline a little bit and make all those people drafted in the first round. Steve, happy?
Yeah. I'm just going to, say that I also think this is a Giovanni Bernard game. For the first time, all 3 of us have Giovanni Bernard ranked ahead of Jeremy Hill. So we are all on the Gio Bernard bandwagon for this week. I feel the same way as Kev does. They're probably going to be the Bengals are going to probably be trailing in this one and have to throw the ball a little bit. And with the Patriots taking away AJ Green, I think that it's going to be a lot of check down passes. So I don't have too much more to add to that.
And start all your Patriots, including James White. So anyway,
start them all.
Start them all. Get them all fired up. They're gonna go on a tear this game again.
Chris Hogan in your lineup?
Depending.
You don't have to start that one.
I think he's a wide receiver 3. Potentially a flex. I mean, he's a boomer bust guy, right? He's a guy I might take a chance on in DFS. I'm not sure what his prices are, but he could have a game like he had last week with over 100 yards and 4 catches. He could have had touchdowns in that game, or he could have a game where he has 2 catches for 30 yards. So definitely boomer bust guy, but worth a shot.
He's starting to creep towards 4,000 in DFS.
All right.
It was a bargain.
Still cheap though, so
he's bargainy.
Yeah, he's
creeping.
He's bargainy. Yeah. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3-1, and they will travel to Washington to take on their football team at 3-2. This is a 1:00 game. Jay Gruden came out and said that he thinks that Robert Kelly needs to get more touches. That was the kind of the news for this game. Not really a whole lot else going on except for Jordan Reed. Oh yeah, wait, do you have Jordan Reed? Anybody got Jordan Reed?
I have him in a Scott Fishbowl. It's going to bury me over there. I've had so many injuries in the Fishbowl.
Yeah, unfortunately for Reed, he's it was weird because I don't think he even got a concussion this time, but he started having concussion symptoms, so they put him in the protocol again. And look, this is a guy that's had a lot of injuries and in particular a lot of concussions, which I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it certainly doesn't sound good. Hopefully the guy gets healthy, but it's definitely questionable for this week. It doesn't look like he's going to play this week, and I think you have to be worried about him going forward on your roster because he's going to be an injury risk. I mean, anytime he takes a decent shot or starts experiencing any of these symptoms, they're going to sit him down and hold him out, and as well they should. But it's certainly not good for your fantasy team when you're counting on a tight end that you drafted probably in the 2nd or 3rd round. On the Eagles side of the ball, I guess the story here is for me is Carson Wentz is completing 67% of his passes. He has a 7-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He's versus Kirk Cousins, who's got 67, who's also completing 67% of his passes, but he has a 7-5 touchdown to interception ratio. We've talked about it before. Cousins just does not look good. I don't know what the difference this year versus last year is, but he is not playing the same level of football. And then for me, I guess my question to you, Steve, what is the deal with Ryan Matthews? Can he get it going? Is he someone to trust? What are you doing with Ryan Matthews?
Well, if you're going into this week, I think based off of last week, you got to roll him out there. He looked pretty good against the Lions, and he got the majority of the carries again. He looked like that running back one. According to the Falafel ranks, we feel the same way. We've got Ryan Matthews at 17 overall for running backs and Darren Sproles at 30. I think that both of them are going to be set up for some pretty nice games. Washington allows more than 5 yards a carry and have given up 8 rushing touchdowns. So I think that the Eagles could get a little bit of a lead here in this game and really just let these guys loose and let them run all over the place. So I like both of these guys. Ryan Matthews is definitely an RB2, and I think you can roll him back out there until he gets injured again.
Yeah, I mean, the Redskins are giving up their 30th against defending running back, 642 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So I think this, even if he doesn't get big rushing totals, he's always an option for a touchdown or two. The guy who's interesting to me in this game is Deshaun Jackson. I think back when I did do the rankings, I didn't factor in the returning to Philadelphia or playing Philadelphia factor. Last year, he was banged up. He didn't play in one game, and he had a 4 for 40 in the other game. But in his first year back in 2014, he went 5 for 117 in the touchdown and 4 for 126. He's definitely the type of guy who plays with he holds a grudge and plays with that chip on his shoulder. So I expect him to actually be more flex worthy than where I have him in my rankings based on that. And the other thing I'll say is people might have been like, oh, Eagles defense didn't look as good last week. They did give up 3 passing touchdowns, and they did give up their highest total to a quarterback in the 5 weeks. But they gave up those 3 touchdowns early, and then they really kind of shut down Detroit the rest of the way. So the Eagles, to me, are still a defense I'm pretty confident will stay very fantasy relevant.
Yeah, I think that you are completely right there, Sal. I agree with you. Moving along here, the Kansas City Chiefs are 2-2, and they are taking on Sal's Oakland Raiders in Oakland at 4-1. Yes, the conference-leading 4-1 Raiders. That just doesn't sound right. Let me check that again. Hold on.
I'm gonna need a minute.
It's been so long. It's been so long.
They will find a way to screw it up, I'm sure. But for
You
now,
son of a...
they are looking good. This is a huge division battle, Sal. I know that the Chiefs are only 2-2, but I think we all know that this division is going to be very tight. There may be some competition from the Broncos at some point too.
At some point.
Oh, it's funny.
You guys think you're funny, huh?
Yeah.
You're funny with your jokes?
It's funny.
Jokes? I don't think so.
Listen, Oakland has given up almost 2,300 yards and 137 points. Kansas City is 29th in points scored, however, and 30th in yards. So, look.
That type of defense will win in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We make big stops when we need them. Damn it.
Is it the old bend but don't break, Sal?
Well, was so flexible.
Look, we're gonna start this game off by letting someone a lot smarter than us talk about it, as we have started in our new segment here, which still doesn't have. Do we have a title yet, guys? Do we have a title?
No,
Yes.
I think we all took the week off.
People who know more than us.
Yeah, people who know more than us? All right, we'll go with that. So this is the People Who Know More Than Us segment, and tonight we have Mr. Christopher Harris from HarrisFootball.com, the Harris Football Podcast. He's kind of all over the place. You can catch him in a lot of different places, and for now, you can hear him right here.
Hey guys, this is Chris Harris from the Harris Football Podcast, and for Week 6, my Player of the Week, I guess we're looking for a fringe starter, a player who maybe you wouldn't normally think would go off. I'm going to go with a Chiefs stack. Now, Jeremy Maclin probably in a lot of lineups, even though he's been frustrating to this point. but I'm going to say Alex Smith against the Raiders. I was tempted to make Alex Smith a top 10 quarterback on my list on harrisfootball.com. Shameless plug. I didn't wind up doing it because I didn't quite have that level of gumption, and I very much doubt Alex Smith's ceiling, but his floor seems awfully safe against the Raiders this week, and sometimes you do get a rushing touchdown or at least some rushing yards out of Smith. In DFS, I kind of like the Alex Smith, Jeremy Maclin stack, maybe even throw Travis Kelce in there. You can throw against the Raiders, especially you can go deep. Now, all we need to do is convince Alex Smith that going deep is a good idea. He doesn't need 18-play drives. But I'm going to say my fringe guy this week who winds up being an interesting fantasy starter and someone you can consider using if your regular guy is maybe a Jameis Winston or something like that on bye. Let's say Alex Smith of the Chiefs, and we'll throw in Jeremy Maclin just for good measure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, so thank you very much to Christopher Harris for his take on Alex Smith. What do you guys think? You going with Alex Smith this week?
Well, I'm just going to say, Mr. Harris, you're a very smart man, and you are smarter than me. And I will point out these statistics. The Oakland Raiders are the worst defending quarterbacks. They've given up 1,690 yards over 5 weeks. They have given up games of 423 yards and 4 touchdowns, 396 yards and 3 touchdowns, 359 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that leads me to this one conclusion. Alex Smith will pass for 196 and 1 touchdown this week because he's Alex Smith.
He is Alex Smith. That is the one anomaly there, is that he is himself, therefore capping his own ceiling.
That's an anomaly? That he's himself? I'm pretty sure that's just always the way it is.
That's what's weird about it. That's what's weird about it.
This is weird.
This is definitely
This is
weird.
weird.
Steve, do you have any actual fantasy news and any fantasy takes for this game?
I will just add that the Oakland Raiders, on top of being passed on a lot, they can also be run on. They rank 6th in the most rush yards, and that means that the return of Jamal Charles, a.k.a. Hot Sprinkles, is going to be sprinkled into this game, and we're going to see what he looks like. So I'm actually excited to see that.
Hot Sprinkles, that's what we're going with?
That is correct. Steve and I have come together and have decided that Hot Sprinkle is Jamal Charles.
Can I get a vote in this? I saw you guys put that.
You're
Sure.
outvoted 2-1.
What's your vote?
No problem.
What is it?
You lose. It doesn't matter what you vote is. You lose.
Good job. Good vote.
That is not fun for me. All right. So Hot Sprinkles sprinkled in this week. That's good. Let's move on.
Hey, before you move on, this will not be my bold prediction, but I'm just going to say right now that Spencer Ware will outtouch Jamal Charles in this game.
All right. That's not bold.
No, that's why I reeled it in. It's not my bold prediction.
Nice. But all right, we'll look out for that. The Dallas Cowboys will travel to Green Bay in a big conference matchup. 4-1 Dallas, 3-1 Green Bay. 425 game. Packers come in second to last in the league in yardage, which is crazy to me. Just under 1,300 yards, but they are 18th in points scored, so they're still scoring even though they're not putting up yardage. It means they're getting good field position somewhere along the way, I guess. Dallas, on the other hand, 6th in points scored and 2nd in yardage with a rookie at quarterback. That is crazy as well. Dak Prescott completing 69% of his passes with 4 touchdowns, and obviously, as everyone has heard multiple times, no interceptions. Aaron Rodgers completing a very uncharacteristic 56.1% of his passes, but he does have 9 touchdowns versus 3 interceptions, and he's currently 10th in fantasy scoring, which is also weird for him. So, this should be an interesting one. Dallas is surprisingly playing some decent defense. Any stats on that, Sal?
Yeah, I don't have anything to point out how good they're playing on defense. They are defending well against the run. I look for where they aren't defending well in this particular game. The only place where they're not defending well is tight end. They're 29th versus tight ends. They've had 4 5-catch games out of tight ends and 1 8-catch game out of a tight end this year. So basically that backs up Kevin's point, because if I had to really look and the only place I could find a weak spot was defending tight end, then it tells you that the Cowboys are definitely defending well.
Yeah, I'll just say that the Cowboys have not allowed a 100-yard rusher since week 1, And so looking at the Packers running back situation, Eddie Lacy, who did look good last week but left in the third quarter with that ankle injury. Then you had James Starks, who popped up on the injury report with the knee injury, and he actually looks like the one that might not be playing. So you're going to have Eddie Lacy, who might be getting a huge workload on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. So depending on, how much volume he gets, this Cowboys line has looked pretty good, but the more volume you get, the more opportunity, the bigger chance you have of busting off a big one, and he did look good on Sunday. So that'll be an interesting matchup that I'm going to be watching this week.
I think the biggest matchup we're all going to look for here is Ezekiel Elliott against the number 1 ranked run defense. The Packers have given up a total of 170 rush yards and 1 touchdown through 4 games. And on the other side, Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in rushing yards with 546 and 5 touchdowns. He's got 3 straight 130-plus yard rushing games, and something's going to have to give. Either somebody's going to drop down the rankings in running or stopping the run. What do you guys think? Who do you think gets the upper hand this week?
I will say the Packers defensive line, because I think the Packers get a little bit of a lead in this one, and I think the Cowboys will have to abandon the run just a little bit. And I will also say that before the season started, I said that Ezekiel Elliott had a ceiling of 1,800 all-purpose yards, and heading into Week 5, we all know what he did in Week 5, he was currently on pace. So, Kev, I would like to retract your laughter at the notion of 1,800 all-purpose yards for Ezekiel Elliott.
No.
All right. All right.
Look,
it's fine.
I'm sure he's on track for it, and I don't know that I laughed. Did I laugh?
Yes, we both did openly.
Because I never doubted the kid's talent. I think he's a rookie, and I thought that they were going to use Alfred Morris more, which they haven't. So I was definitely wrong about that, and I will admit to that. I do think it's early. I think we're 5 games into the season, and I think that rookies sometimes hit walls. And I would be concerned with his usage if I were them in his rookie year, and I would like to see what happens as we get towards the end of the season, and if his production continues in this direction. So I'm not going to retract any statements. I still think that I stand by what I said, and we'll see what happens.
We shall see.
We shall see. All right, the Atlanta Falcons are 4-1. And they look fantastic. They travel to Seattle, though, to take on the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks, who are coming off the bye week. Atlanta they're not leading the league in passing touchdowns. That's about it for offensive categories that they're not leading the league in. They are all over the board as far as putting points up, and fantasy-wise, it's just been great for Matt Ryan. It's been great for Julio Jones. The 2 running backs, Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, are both putting up numbers which are incredible. So, but Seattle has given up the second fewest points in the league this year. So they're gonna face another tough test. I mean, obviously, they went into Denver last week, which people thought was going to show who the Atlanta Falcons really were. A good defense was finally going to stop them, and yada yada yada. And they went in and torched them. So for what, 372 total yards and 250 through the air, which is incredible because no team has done anything like that to the Broncos. So, I mean, I think you have to buy into the Atlanta Falcons as an offense now. I don't think you can ignore it, and I don't think you can say that it's going to be shut down by a solid defense. So Seattle's going to have their hands full. Obviously, Seattle's a tough place to play, but it should be interesting to see how this defense handles the Falcons. Julio Jones is supposed to be matched up with Richard Sherman all game. I guess he's going to shadow him, so that'll be an interesting matchup for me to watch. Interestingly, on the Seattle side of the ball, Christian Michael is currently RB17 in the Falafel League. So I guess my question here, and I guess it's not relevant to this game, but has he earned the starting role for the rest of the year, or is Rawls someone we should consider when he comes back?
For me, I would say that right now he's earned it, but that doesn't mean that you don't add Rawls if you have an open roster spot. Rawls' ability and talent can't be denied, and what he did last year, he's going to have a shot when he comes back to prove himself. So he's not a guy I'm ignoring. If you have a small bench, I understand you're not adding him, but if you have some room for him, definitely pick him up.
So what about Michael in this game? What do you see for him in this game?
But the Falcons are, a top 12 defense, I believe, against running backs in fantasy this year. So I think that because Seattle will run the ball, they just stay steady and run the ball, and they might be up big in a game like this. I'm a guy who said last week the Falcons are for real. Then every week when I have to look at games, I don't necessarily believe myself. So real quick, a couple of defensive stats I want to take a quick look at. The Falcons, we all know, are really bad at pass defense. They're 31st at defending quarterbacks. Much like the Raiders, they have given up 1,516 yards and 14 touchdowns to quarterbacks. They've given up 4 touchdowns, 3, 3, and 3, and they gave up only 1 to pitiful Paxton Lynch. So if Simeon was in there, who knows? It might have been another 3-touchdown game. Seattle, on the other side, they've given up nearly half the passing yards, 805, that the Falcons have given up. So this is definitely going to be tough sledding for Matt Ryan. Seattle is first in defending QBs. They've given up 1 passing touchdown, 5th in defending running backs. And here's an interesting stat. Carlos Hyde rushed for 21 carries, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and what we all refer to as garbage time in that game. Those are the only 2 rushing touchdowns that Seattle has given up this year. So they've given up 1 real legitimate touchdown in competitive game play. They're second in defending wide receivers. They're third in defending tight ends. This is really, if Atlanta comes out and puts up numbers this week, absolutely 100%, they have a legitimate shot at winning that division and making a run in the playoffs. It's just no other way to deny that.
And I'll just say that, much like we talked about in the Ravens game, the Seahawks defense has been really, really good. But when you look at the teams that they've played, they've only had 4 games. They had the bye last week. They played Miami, LA, San Francisco, and the Jets. The Jets have the best offense of those 4 teams, and their offense looks terrible right now. So, I mean, they have not really played a scary offense yet. This will by far be the best offense that they will face. So this will be probably the game of the week for me. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm interested to see how the Seahawks defense, coming off that bye, have an extra week to prepare for this one. I want to see how this one plays out. It's going to be a fun one.
Is this a turn off the red zone and watch this game solo focus type of game?
I'm terrible. I don't even turn off red zone when the Broncos are playing.
Wow, that's bad.
I know.
We don't want to watch that.
Listen, if you're choosing between at 4 o'clock, your 4 o'clock games are what? Kansas City, Oakland, Dallas, Green Bay, Atlanta, Seattle, and Indy, Houston. Just not
those
Indy,
3.
Houston. Just those 3. That's a tough call, actually, because I'm interested in all of those games.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one there. Those are all great games.
I think I'm sticking with red zone on that one.
Yep, red zone for the win.
Red zone for the win. All right, let's keep it moving. One quick thing on Seattle for me. Will be looking to see how Tyler Lockett looks. I know you guys keep telling me to drop him and give up my hope, but I'm hopeful that the bye week helped him heal up and that he's going to look a lot better. So hopefully that will happen. Indianapolis Colts are 2-3. They will travel to Houston to take on the 3-2 Texans. Colts have actually given up the most points of any team in the league at 148. Meanwhile, the Texans have only scored 82 points for second worst in the league. So I'm not really 100% certain what's going to happen here, because you would think, you see the Colts on your schedule and you start licking your chops if you're an offense, but the Texans aren't really doing anything. So I guess my question to you, Sal, will Lamar Miller ever score a touchdown? And will he increase his 3.7 yards per carry?
If he doesn't do it this week, then I'm selling, because the Colts are 29th versus running backs. They've given up 800 plus total yards to running backs. Pretty generous in both rushing and receiving. They've given up 7 total touchdowns, 4 rushing, 3 receiving, 2 running backs. He's a dual threat, as we've all come to expect. And if he cannot get it going this week, I mean, grab what you still can for him, because the touches have gone down each week. And I don't know if that's because they're thinking he can't handle the load, but it's make it or break it this week, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that this is going to be a big game for DeAndre Hopkins. The Colts are allowing over 300 yards a game passing, so it looked like at the end of that game last week against Minnesota that Brock finally realized that DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best wide receivers in football. So he's still 15th in the league in targets this year, and I'm sure owners are still wanting a little bit more out of him. So I think this is a big DeAndre Hopkins game.
On the Texans side, the Texans have been a good defense. I think that's what's helped them get their record to where it is because, believe it or not, they are in first place even after getting shut out by New England. I believe they're still in first place, Kevin. Is that correct?
The Texans?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. They're second in defending quarterbacks. But last week against Sam Bradford, they gave up 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I'm not completely scared off of Andrew Luck on this game. It doesn't mean I'm going to run out and take a lesser valued guy like Alex Smith and put him in Luck's place. I'm still going to get him in there. And while they defend the run well, they have given up 6 touchdowns to running backs. So Frank Gore is a guy to me who's been very consistent. He's got you about 75 plus yards a week, total yards, 75 to 100, and he's good for a touchdown probably in this game. So I'm not completely scared off of starting Frank Gore this week as well.
Just to throw this out here, I actually do have Alex Smith ranked higher than Andrew Luck this week. I have Smith at 8 and I have Luck at 10. So I would be willing to take that chance, I guess. That's just me personally.
Not the Marcus Mariota chance, though.
Not the Marcus Mariota chance. No, absolutely not. Gore is on pace for 250 carries. I wonder whether or not he'll be able to keep that up. But as you said, Sal, he has been very consistent. So definitely a guy you can keep in your lineup. All right. The New York Jets will travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Jets are 1-4. The Cardinals are 2-3 and really need another victory here. This is obviously the Monday night game at 8:30. Carson Palmer returned to practice this week. He's expected to play after sitting out last week for a concussion and making us all sit through the Drew Stanton experiment. He is terrible, and hopefully he never sees the field again. But Palmer will be back. The Jets, according to Pro Football References, have had the third easiest schedule and yet still somehow have a negative 44-point differential. I don't know how that's possible, but they don't look very good either. Obviously, the Eric Decker news came out this week that he will be having surgery, so he was moved to IR, so that's not helpful at all. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, David Johnson is averaging almost 140 total yards from scrimmage per game, which would, at the end of the season, give him well over 2,200 for the season. He's averaging almost 22 touches per game between both, rushes and receptions. So I don't know. I guess the question I have is there any way to stop David Johnson for the Jets? I know they've been good against the run, but I don't think you can stop this guy.
Yeah, I think that's the Jets' game plan, right? And they definitely are good. Top 4, maybe top 5 at stopping the run against fantasy running backs, but he'll just get involved in the passing game a little bit more. Maybe he doesn't have a lot of rushing yards and he just receives a lot more. I mean, the Jets are terrible in the pass game, 29th versus QBs, 31st versus wide receivers. They've also given, them, the Falcons and the Raiders, all in or around 1,600 yards. They've given up 12 passing touchdowns. So I don't think you stop David Johnson from getting good total fantasy numbers. Maybe they don't come in the form of rushing yards, but he'll still get his.
Yeah, I also think that John Brown is a sneaky play. He burned a lot of people last week after having a great week the week prior against Buffalo. But the Jets, like Sal just said, they've got terrible secondary. They've allowed 8 completions of 40 yards or more down the field, so you can get deep on them. I don't like Michael Floyd as much anymore. His stock has been dropping a lot. So I think John Brown gets some big deep passes and catches a big touchdown on Monday night. So that's someone that I'm looking at. And then, like Kev mentioned, with Eric Decker being out, Quincy Enunwa, he should be in line to have a pretty good game. I think we expect Patrick Peterson to be shadowing Brandon Marshall. So that should leave some targets open for the second wide receiver, which is now Quincy Enunwa.
I dropped Michael Floyd all the way down to like wide receiver 51 maybe this week for me. And I actually dropped him in a 12-team Yahoo League. and then I'm forced to actually start him in 2 other places this week because of injuries or bye weeks or just the lack of depth, guys who haven't panned out. So it's kind of I'm a little torn with you, Mr. Floyd.
Yeah, it's funny, Sal. One of the notes that I had remaining for this game is to ask you whether or not Floyd is valuable at all for the rest of the season. So I'm glad you touched on that there. That about does it for the game previews. We've done it. We've gone all the way through them. So really quickly, let's get to the bold predictions. Steve.
I'm going to say Le'Veon Bell has 250 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns.
250?
All-purpose.
And 2 touchdowns?
Yep.
Yeah, buddy. Get after it. All right. Sal, what do you got?
All right, so I'm going to do mine on the fly. So I will say, and I know that I made a prediction that Antonio Brown will go over 200 receiving yards in that game. I'm going to say that the highest scoring wide receiver in that game is Eli Rogers.
Eli Rogers, huh?
Might be one of the quickest retractions I've ever heard.
Yeah, that was pretty quick, especially since you said, over 200 yards for Antonio.
I just said that I said it. All right, God damn it. You guys wanted a bold prediction on the fly? I'm flying, baby.
All right, you are certainly high on something. All right, for me, my bold prediction, not super bold, but I'm going to say Cam Newton has 5 touchdowns between passing and rushing this week. Yep, that's right. I think he's going to go 5 touchdowns.
2.5 of each?
Yeah, 2.5 of each. He's going to be the first quarterback ever to score half a rushing touchdown. So that's it for the show tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and thank you for sticking around. Let's get to some quick final thoughts, Steve.
All right, everybody. Thank you yet again for sticking around. We are getting into week 6. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Falafel House. You can also find us on Facebook. Just like our page Falafel House there. Go to the website falafelhouse.com, and as always, find us on the Fantasy Life app. Just go to the Falafel House chat. Sal.
I guess I'll thank some people today, Kev. Thank you to all the people who keep showing up in the Falafel House chat and keeping it going strong. We are the #1 trending chat consistently for well over a year and 2 months at this point, and we love the new people, the regulars, everybody who comes in. You make this a lot of fun for us, and I just want to thank you for that, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely thanks to all of those people for that. And I just want to say to everyone out there who's listening, if you could leave us a review either on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, that would be great. We appreciate the feedback, whether it's good or bad, preferably good. And it definitely helps us with all the things that we want to do. So thank you very much for those. Hopefully you will review us. And until next week, just a reminder, we will be doing 3 shows a week for the rest of the season. So you can catch us again Monday or I guess late Sunday if you really want to. So that's it. Until next time, Steve, hit the button.